Hey everyone, and welcome to Read This Now, the weekly webcast where Brad Gustafson and I share two books that we love, two of them, darn it, two that we love and that we think you should read. When, Brad?
Right now, I have all this energy just because it's been a little while since we've connected. Yeah. And I feel like just jumping into the camera and talking about books and giving you a high five, all the things.
Yes.
So I'm going to try to tone it down a hair and get at an acceptable level of communication. How are you doing, Jen?
I am doing great, and I have missed you so much over the last few weeks. I cannot wait to hear what you've been reading, and I can't wait to share what I've been reading too. So dive right in, my friend.
All right. So I read on vacation a book unlike any book I think I've ever read. And I wish I could go back in time and reread the book with you or another friend so I could process and talk about it, because it was so different. And admittedly, initially I was caught in the gravitational pull of this book. Like, I knew I needed it and I wanted to read it, and I was loving it, but I also knew I wasn't tapping in fully or understanding everything, just because it was so different. And then about halfway through, I started making connections that I'll just go ahead and say it. You would have made them probably after the first chapter, or maybe even right away. You would have been like, Brad, this is this. But I started making them. And then I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I'm flipping back and discovering and then this whole new world of brilliant writing and illustrating was made known to me. So the book, I'm going to tweet out a little later a 6-word book talk. I'm still kind of polishing it up, but if I had to pick 6 words, it would be something along the lines of friendship, dreams, and I'm going to use a word I've never said out loud before, ethereal. I've read the word. I think it was destiny, because I usually wouldn't use a word that I haven't said before, but I think this book, ethereal, like an ethereal mosaic, is that's kind of my 6-word book talk. And I know that was really rough and choppy. I'll polish it up and share it out. But really, what the book is Kaleidoscope, okay, by Brian Selznick. And kind of what drew me to this was I read the back before I read it, and it talked about Brian is the author of The Invention of Hugo Cabaret. I'm like, oh my gosh, okay. So I read this, and it is just magical. So here are a few things I loved about it as I'm piecing this all together, and I don't even really know where to start. There are these magical, amazing adventures, and right away you kind of know it's a different book because it's talking about like a person who meets a giant and interacts with an invisible giant and travels to outer space where the king of the moon battles the king of the sun. Just really cool stuff that's out there, but incredibly well written and emotional. Like I said, it has a gravitational pull, and I was caught in it. I still am caught in it. Wow. But then the stories kind of, in a really weird, loose kaleidoscope way, loop back and forth. So for example, I noticed early on, the boy, I mentioned the giant, like the boy or the character would notice the giant every once in a while eating an apple. Well, way later in the book, and this is when it started making sense to me at a different level, there was a story about a guy who collected books of like every known fact in the world. He had a book for it, and he was writing, and he would just start writing A to Z, and he started writing about apples. But it wasn't just like a few facts about apples, because apples are like a gateway to the universe. You could talk about apples and go to Johnny Appleseed, and then learn about apple cider, and then learn about the apple of my eye, and then healthcare, because an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Before you know it, a book about apples turns out about saving lives and being a doctor and things like that. Anyway, I'm kind of talking to you and book talking this book almost how it's written. It is wild. It is connected in a kaleidoscope way. Here's one quick picture preview that I'm embarrassed to say that I didn't notice this until halfway through. But each chapter starts out with this beautiful kaleidoscope.
Sure.
And of course, we all know what a well, I shouldn't say we all do, but like, you know, it's a you know that parts of an image in there. I didn't even realize that on the very next page, that's what the kaleidoscope was looking at. And once I
Oh,
figured that
neat.
out, I went
Yeah.
back and looked, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that is beautiful. And it's just another way that it's set up. So that was a really wild ride, but that's how the book is, except the book is written really well, unlike how I just talked about it. I know I
No,
was a
I
little
thought you did
chatty.
a great job explaining it. You know, one of the things I noticed, you're holding up an arc of that book, and I have only seen an arc of it as well. And I'm really curious about whether or not the final copy has the illustrations are in color. And
Mm.
so if one of our 3.5 viewers has read a final copy, I would be interested in knowing that. Because it might make me even want to revisit it. I feel like I've read it a long time ago, and thought, oh my gosh, Brian Selznick is so much smarter than I am. Like, who would come up with, like, this is it's like the brains of people like that. I marvel at it. Like, I
Yep.
marvel at it. So
This would be a book I would love to read, with friends, or if I was
yeah,
teaching, like with kids, and then talk through, because I have no doubt that each person would see different things in the
yeah.
kaleidoscope and make connections, and it would just go deeper and deeper, and the conversation would be so rich. But instead, I read it alone and probably missed half of what I was supposed to.
No, but I think it's the type of book that lends itself to book clubs, whether you're talking
Mhm.
about like literature circles in a classroom or an after school book club or whatever, or even an adult book club. I think it lends itself to that. I also think it lends itself to multiple readings.
Yes.
And so, I just think it's a very rich book, and I'm glad you brought it up because I had sort of forgotten about it.
Jenna, one last thing. I like what you said. It lends itself to multiple readings. I literally, when I finished, I was like so excited, like, no way, no way, no way. You mean that was connected to that? I literally went immediately to chapter 1 and started rereading.
Yep.
I didn't reread the whole thing, but I was so excited I had to like relook at it with a different lens, because my kaleidoscope lens kind of changed once I honed in on it at the end. And I think, to Brian's credit too, I think he probably scaffolded it in a way where he didn't want me to notice everything right away, the way it built, and then suddenly I noticed. I would guess that that's how it was designed, or how it was written. So at least that's the story
Wow.
I'm telling myself.
What a great book talk. I
Yeah.
love it. I don't know if I can follow it up, but I'm going to try to. I want to say that I think I've said this before this year, Brad, and I'm going to be like the little girl who cried wolf, in the sense, if I keep saying the same thing over and over again, you're going to stop believing me. But I feel like the book I'm about to share might be my favorite book of 2022 so far, which I think I've said before. But every time I say, oh, I think this might be my favorite, something else comes along that takes a special place in my heart. And this book, I feel like I keep, like, I'm holding it right here, right now, because I just want to hug it. I love it so, so much. And I've been dying to share it with you. So I'm so excited. It's one of those books, I say this a lot too, that as I was reading it, I thought, oh my gosh, Brad would love this book. And kind in this, it's not like Kaleidoscope really in any way, except that one very loose similarity I can draw between them is that this is a book that really contains 3 different stories. And they are told in alternating chapters. So chapter 1 is story A, chapter 2 is story B, chapter 3 is story C, and then they alternate again, ABC, ABC, ABC. So you with me, right?
Yep.
And I don't know that I've ever done this before on Read This Now, but I feel like the best way for me to introduce this book and tell you what it's about is to read the first chapter. And that might seem like a long thing for Read This Now, but the first chapter is only a page and a half, so it's not that long, okay? But the book, let me tell you what the book is called. It's called Answers in the Pages, and it's by David Levithan. Okay. And I'm going to read the first chapter to you, and then I will talk a little bit about those alternating stories. Okay. In the end, after everything they'd been through, there was only one thing the residents of Sandpiper Township could really agree upon: that all the fighting, all the commotion, all the rallying really came down to how a person chose to read a single sentence. The sentence in question was, at that moment, Rick knew just how deeply he loved Oliver, and Oliver knew just how deeply he loved Rick. And the understanding of this moment would lead them to much of the happiness and adventure that came next. As sentences go, it's a bit long, and you had to read an entire book in order to get to it. Many of the residents of Sandpiper Township wouldn't have noticed it at all had it been said on a TV show or had it appeared as a quote in the middle of a newspaper article. But because it was the very last line in The Adventurers, and because the adventurers had been assigned in Mr. Howe's 5th grade class, people did take notice. Only one person at first, then considerably more. It's worth reading the sentence again before I begin to tell you what happened. At that moment, Rick knew just how deeply he loved Oliver, and Oliver knew just how deeply he loved Rick. And the understanding of this moment would lead them to much of the happiness and adventure that came next. It'd be a good idea for you to stop and consider what you think about this sentence. This will be the very last time you get to read it without other people telling you what they think about it. That's how it was in Sandpiper Township that November. I know this because I was one of the first people in Sandpiper Township, besides Mr. Howe, to read the sentence. Unfortunately, I didn't read it as soon as I could have. I brought the book home with me and only read the first few pages. Then I left it on the kitchen counter and went to eat a snack in front of the TV. From there, it only took an hour for my life to spiral out of control. That's the first chapter, about a young kid in the 5th grade who gets assigned a book, The Adventurers, by his 5th grade teacher, takes it home, leaves it on the counter, where his mom picks it up. And mom has the habit, as some people do, of skipping to the very end of a book. Like some people want to know what happens at the end and then read from the beginning to the end. I don't know what it's like to be one of those people. I'm not like that at all, but some people are. Mom gets to the end, reads that last sentence, decides that she knows what the book is about, and starts to have conversations with her friends, with the school board, with the principal, with the teacher, but not, unfortunately, with her son, about why this book shouldn't be a part of their curriculum and should be removed from the school. Now, remember I told you that the book is ABC, ABC? All story A's are about Sandpiper Township and how this story unfolds. Chapter B, and this is the part I love so much, is The Adventurers, is the story that the kids are reading. And so we get to read the book along with them. And then story C is about 2 other kids, and I'm not going to tell you anything about that because how they're related to the rest of this book is the mystery for readers to solve. I, having read 1 million books approximately, didn't figure out the mystery of how those 2 kids were related to the rest of the book until close to the end. And I love that. I kept thinking, how is this all going to fit together? And then when I did realize it, I could see all the clues that had happened previously that I missed, right? And then I was like, oh, I can't believe I missed that. But I wondered if kids would catch on sooner than I did. I think this book is a book for our time right now. I think it's important for our time that we're living in right now. B, I love the fact that none of the characters are like created or portrayed as caricatures. They're all very nuanced, and we have empathy for all of them, even if we don't agree with their decisions. We can empathize with them, and we know that in their hearts they're wanting to do the right thing. And then also, I think this book is beautifully written. The language is gorgeous. And finally, the last thing I'll say about it is one of my complaints, you've probably heard me say this before, about a lot of books for middle grade readers, those readers between 4th and 7th grade. A lot of books being published for those kids right now are so long. They're like 300, 400, 500 pages. And while I love some of those books, in my experience in teaching those kids, a book that big can sometimes be intimidating. You know, for a lot of readers, that's a big book, and you might not pick it up because you think, oh my gosh, I can't get through a 400-page book. This book is like the perfect length for middle grade readers. It's like 100 and some odd pages. And what David Levithan accomplishes in those 170 pages is remarkable. So it's called Answers in the Pages. All those turtles will make sense to readers once they read it. It's by David Levithan, and I think you should read it right now. My favorite of 2022 so far.
Jen, I could listen to you book talk all day long. Literally, that might have been your best book talk of 2022.
Wow, how about that?
So much so, I'm going to use a quick baseball analogy. If this were a baseball game, that was the 9th inning, and you just hit a walk-off home run to end the game, Jen. Awesome. Literally, I was enthralled.
Well, listen, our team had a really good day then because we both knocked it out of the park. I love it today. Yay! Our triumphant return.
Ordinarily, we give the website to go check out all the other titles and videos we've talked about, but I'm just going to say that was so good, people. Skip the archive for now. Just watch and rewatch what Jen just did and said.
Just hit rewind. Back to the beginning. Watch it all again. Brad, I'm so type A. I can't help but mention the website though. So can I do it? Is that okay?
Of course you can. Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. So I don't usually do this part. So let's see if I actually get it right. Once you have rewound and watched this video several times just to get your fill of it, we also have an archive with all the book talks we've done over the last 4 years, Brad. This summer is 4 years of Read This Now. That's amazing,
can I
right?
interrupt you? Yeah. I'm a little nervous. You're going to do this part better than me, and I'm going to lose my job. Can I just say the website?
Yes,
because
please do it. Do it. Where
I need my small sliver of the show. I feel like I kind of own this part.
It's yours.
I'm like, oh my God, she is gonna hit 2 home runs in one show. No, it's bit.ly/read_this_now. Right?
Another home run. We better quit while we're ahead, my friend, because we have had nothing but wins so far this show. Thank you so much. Yes, thank you all. And thanks for watching. Happy reading until next week.